Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member. And it's good to see my Chairman of the subcommittee, my handsome friend, my very healthy friend, the debonair Chairman Barletta. Today's markup includes the bipartisan H.R. 2322, the Public Building Savings and Reform Act of 2015. This bill begins the process of reforming GSA, Public Building Services, and the Federal Protective Service. The GAO has consistently described the management of Federal real property an area of high risk. The provisions contained in today's bill will address many of the concerns that GAO has documented. Specifically, the bill will allow GSA to reform the leasing process and tighten oversight of the construction process. Perhaps the most important provision is the 5-year pilot program designed to streamline the leasing procurement process and to make GSA more efficient. By raising the threshold for simplified lease acquisitions, I believe GSA will be able to reduce their workload on smaller leases and use their resources on larger leases that can provide the maximum savings to taxpayers. Other measures in the pilot allow for more consolidations and co-locations where they make sense. It will also allow GSA to amortize the costs of furniture, equipment, and move costs into the lease rental rate. This will make it easier for GSA to make smarter and more aggressive moves in the real estate market. I'm also pleased that today's bill includes several of the recommendations from my bill, H.R. 1850, the Federal Protective Service Improvement Act. Just over 20 years ago, on April 19, 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building was bombed in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In the aftermath of this bombing, the Department of Justice assessed the vulnerability of Federal offices in the United States, particularly to acts of terrorism and other forms of violence. The DOJ made several recommendations, including upgrading the Federal Protective Service and bringing each Federal facility up to minimum standards suggested for its security levels. The reforms in today's legislation begin to address those recommendations in a very meaningful way. These reforms include creating a national framework for the 13,000 contract guards that are protecting Federal buildings, employees, and visitors each and every day. It creates a minimum level of training for these protective service officers, while providing authority for PSOs to carry firearms and detain those who have been accused of a felony on Federal property. By requiring minimum standards and having the Attorney General develop guidelines for detentions on Federal properties, I believe FPS will be better able to protect Federal employees. Other provisions require FPS to focus on their core mission of securing Federal buildings and will allow them to have a more comprehensive approach to providing security to the buildings in GSO's inventory. The bill also requires the Secretary of Homeland Security to study whether it has a sufficient amount of law enforcement officers and inspectors necessary to regularly conduct security assessments of Federal facilities. Another provision requires a study of whether the FPS's funding fee structure is sufficient to fund the necessary strong law enforcement presence very much so needed. I hope that we can continue to work in a bipartisan manner on this committee. I want to thank the Ranking Member, my good friend Chairman Barletta, and welcome him back, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the